This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Brian Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get fly. I got 6 jobs. I don't get time. I don't get time.
And we are still not tired here on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres. I am your host, Vito Geronimo Churco, as I like to say, really just Vito Jerome Churco, and the Doc from Doc and Jock, my broadcast partner in fun, John Charles Macaroon. John, how's it going?
Vito, always enjoy the conversation. What a snowy week we had. Welcome to the weekend. Always enjoy having a chat, and always enjoy when family comes to town. Blair is here in studio, friend of the podcast. I always enjoy seeing her around town. The coverage that she provides. Quick, funny story. I had an opportunity to kind of watch, and that's what I like to do as a psychologist, just kind of sit back and learn from the professionals. And part of, watching professionals is just kind of count how many takes it does, how many takes the person needs to get their stuff done. I want to say proudly, Blair only needs like 12 takes to get stuff done.
12?
Blair, welcome.
Thank you, guys. I'm excited to be here, as always. Thanks for having me.
No, and all kidding aside, Blair does great work. Detroit Sports Media. Check it out. She's going to Pistons game, covering college basketball, doing in-depth profiles. She does a lot of great video work over there at Detroit Sports Media. Friend of the podcast, so whenever Vito's like, I got Blair on the podcast, I'm like, dude, that's, we don't have to call her a guest. She's friend of the podcast. And so whenever she wants to drop by, it's our pleasure. She brings a lot of class to the joint. And to have her here on Two Bad Hombres, I'm looking forward to the chat.
Really quick, she brings a lot of class to the joint because I don't. Is that what you're trying to infer?
Listen, in terms of what you sent me on Snapchat over this weekend and what I was seeing and what you were doing at like 3:09 a.m. over the last weekend, I think she brings a lot of class to what we're doing.
By the way, Blair Glover.
Yes.
At Blair on Air 1 on Twitter.
You got it.
Love following you for all the Detroit sports media related stuff that you do, such as covering the Pistons, and you help run the social media, the Twitter handle for Detroit sports media as well.
Yes.
How did you land that gig, and what does it exactly entail for you?
I've actually been involved with Detroit sports media for about 3.5 years now, and I started off as a student. They actually awarded me a scholarship, and during my interview process, I wanted to know how I could become involved with the organization, and I noticed that it wasn't easy for me to find a presence. So once I became a student member, they allowed me to come in and kind of work with them and help to kind of turn the social media and marketing portion around. So now I'm assistant director of social media along with Neil Rule of Oakland Athletics. He's the director of social media for Detroit Sports Media. All of that media. I almost got tongue-tied.
And John likes himself some Neil Rule, who works at OU currently, and John's been covering Oakland University basketball recently. And, well, you know what? What's it like working with Neil Rule?
It's unbelievable because when you have somebody across from you, when I did the one-on-one with him, one of the things that came across was his passion, and something that came across was his willingness to say, look, I don't say no. If you call me up for an interview, he said, I can count on my hands the number of times I've said no to a media entity, to, somebody requesting my time. And so I really took that to heart in that this is a guy that his time is valuable. He's an up-and-coming broadcaster, a play-by-play voice, has done work with the Detroit Pistons, and he took time out of his day to come and sit and talk to a podcaster. And then something else I respected and really looked to with Neil was he came in here and he learned. He learned from me. He's like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? And he's implemented it with the Golden Grizzlies as well. They've got a podcast. He came in and said, yeah, this thing is taken off. He's been a presence on the podcast. And something that really comes across when you talk to Neil is that he doesn't take it too seriously. He's a regular guy, a guy that you could have a couple pops with, and he'll share insights. And the good thing is, in terms of sitting back and watching, a lot of times after the games and stuff, Neil will be one of the first people to ask questions. And so I write down the stuff that he's asking and things like that. So I've learned a lot from people like Neil, and I give him credit. He does a great job. And if you don't like my coverage, you got to blame a little bit of Neil because I took a little bit from him as well. You got to model a guy like that.
By the way, really quick, are you taking credit for the implementation by OU of a podcast?
I have to, because I noticed there was not an Oakland Golden Grizzlies podcast until after Neil sat down here, and I feel like I'm taking a lot of credit for stuff. I don't
You
have
like
a problem
doing that.
I don't have
We
a problem.
noticed that.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
Are you going to get him a really nice gift of candy corn for Christmas?
I think I will. Neil loves himself some candy corn.
And he's a cool guy to deal with.
Yes, very
you
cool.
can, shoot the breeze with. And speaking of that now and having a few pops, is that what you called drinking beer, by the way?
Exactly.
I don't know if I really heard of that.
A few
Pops?
Yeah.
Well, you know, being from Detroit, the Midwest area, we say pop instead of soda, but we're usually talking about Faygo or Pepsi or... But I can get with this. I can get with the new lingo.
I get what he's putting down.
Yeah,
I'm picking up what he's putting down. So, well, speaking of having a few pops, so I went to Greektown, last weekend in another segment called Things That I Did That Doc wasn't invited to. We've labeled it that now for a while here on Two Bad Hombres, Blair.
Nice.
And was able to spend some time at Firebird Tavern for my buddy Nick Schmiegel's, his brother's 21st birthday. He came from Chicago. He goes to DePaul University and made the stop home to hang out with his friends this past weekend. And we ended up at Firebird Tavern. Well, we were there the whole entire time, really closed the bar down. Well, before it officially closed down, I wanted to bring up this little anecdote here. Was drinking my final beer. Got one more beer in before 2 a.m.
One more pop.
One more pop, as Doc put it. And I wasn't done with it. And you know what? Guess what? It wasn't just me that wasn't done with their beer, with their alcoholic beverage of choice that night. And they started kicking people out before 2 a.m. So pretty much my question here for you guys is fair or foul on behalf of Firebird Tavern to do that? And it's not like I was outrageous and, was obnoxious. I wasn't doing anything bad, illegal, like you think I do, Doc, when I go out. It wasn't anything like that. So why kick me out when I didn't finish my beer? And pretty much they dared me or, pressured me to slug my beer. And I don't slug beers, by the way. I don't chug, I don't slug, whatever you want to call it. I, take my time drinking my beer. So fair or foul on behalf of Firebird Tavern, Doc?
I say fair because I understand when you work, sometimes there are days you just want to get out of there. And I know the place closes at 2. Sometimes if you let people just hang around, they're going to stay there till 2:30, 2:45, just chit-chatting. And sometimes when you're a busy bar, you just want to close sometimes. You just want to be out and about. You want to just shut everything down, have all the staff clean up. You want stuff to be kind of run smooth. And anytime I would see you out and about, I'd be like, get this guy out of here because I don't smell money coming off of you because that was probably your second beer the entire night.
Well, I think I got a few bought for me, so I probably wasn't spending a ton of money.
Exactly.
And you know what I didn't do, which is bad on my behalf, by the way, a really quick note. I didn't buy Nick Schmiegel's brother a drink for his 21st birthday. I felt really bad after that because I probably should have done that. So, right?
Firebird Tavern, fair. Kick out Vito. He's not a big spender. What do you add to coming there? You didn't bring like anybody else. You didn't bring any VIPs. So they're like, get this kid out of here. What's he doing? There's probably a risk that he's going to get beat up or something bad happening to him.
Well, I brought a lot of good-looking dudes. I can say that much about my group.
Very good.
And my posse, whatever you want to call it, that came out with me last Saturday night. Now, Blair, your reaction to my story here.
So, what time do they serve their last drink from the bar?
I think it was like 1:40. It might have been a little bit earlier than that, though, when they served their last drink officially last Saturday night. Now, I don't know what the official cutoff is for them, but you would think it has to be before. Well, I wonder if bars now, do you know this, guys, technically, do they shut down maybe what they're doing and selling beer before because they want people out officially by 2, actually?
I was going to say, if they do that, then I might have gone with fair. But if they sold you the drink with like 5 minutes to go in the night, then I'm going to go with foul. Because like you said, you don't chug. I don't know. It's tough. I
always thought closing time was 2 o'clock, 2 a.m.
Because it is officially when you have to leave the bar. But they were seriously kicking people out that weren't doing anything outrageous before 2 a.m. I mean, I was sitting there just drinking my last beer. I think it is foul, too.
Before 2 a.m., foul. You always play, it's like the last song, and the lights come up.
Yes.
So the DJ, to me, dictates that, and you kind of get it. It's a bar, so maybe the lights don't come up. But before 2 a.m., foul.
And I've enjoyed it before there. I had my brother's 21st, by the way. Doc, I'm sorry you weren't invited to that. He will get out at some point, okay? I don't like sounding like the bad guy all the time on here, okay?
I was going to say, it's starting to add up.
Is it starting to add up? I know, it's starting to look really bad.
Doesn't get to go.
I know, it looks really bad. Doc, your response.
Yeah, real quick. It seemed like you went to a burger joint after.
So
tell me some places. Tell me some places. First of all, tell me some places that you can go between 2 and 4 a.m. A lot of people go to Coney Island. A lot of people like to go to places to have some good food because when you go out and you have some drinks, you have a good time. one of the best parts of the night is to kind of hang out, maybe get breakfast or good to go. It seemed like you went to a burger joint. I seen it because Vito, I got sources everywhere.
I was gonna say, how the hell did you find out when I didn't send you anything?
Vito, I got sources everywhere. And so if you're at Greektown or you're in the Detroit area, people are going to notice you, okay? You just can't walk around as the person you are and just go indiscriminately. You just can't go and be a guy that just kind of hangs in the background. People know you from the network. I mean, we've tweeted you now for the better part of 2.5 years.
Blair's obviously from the network. He's taking credit for that once again,
yes.
too. Obviously from the DSP network.
I think there's going to be something to come up throughout the conversation. He'll get credit for something from me.
Yes.
So it's okay. I'll roll with it.
Yes. But tell me where you went and was the food good? Because it seemed like you were chowing down having a good old time.
Five Guys and Fries, and I know who sent you the snap. Must have been a snap sent by my buddy Nick Schmiegel, another name drop for this guy that would like to be on. I guess I've been rude to him and not allowing him to come on. Well, he wants to come back on, Doc. Okay. And you try to get him on.
Okay.
So to talk about some other matters we're not going to discuss today, but yeah, it was a really good burger. I love Five Guys and Fries. There's one located right downtown in Greektown. I love it. I mean, have you had?
Yeah, I've had it. I don't eat beef, but I still enjoy the place. I don't know. Oh, the fries. The fries
are good,
great.
aren't they? The Cajun
they put
fries.
The Cajun sauce,
yes,
and then
really
they've
good.
got the barrel of peanuts there if you're waiting. That's kind of cool. I've been there.
Now, I wonder, Doc, if the Pistons ever hang out there. Let's talk about the Pistons now a little bit here. Now, they had a great start to the season, 14-6. They've lost 6 straight. Blair Glover, she knows everything about the Pistons. She's always there. We would love to get access, but, she's there and she takes our spot all the time.
Oh, no.
But,
That's why
she wouldn't
he brought
do that.
me on. So he said that you were going to be the one to, throw a shot or take some credit. Vito, we're getting started so early here. This is our first time in the studio. So is this how you want to treat me this first time?
I'm going to try to treat you better than that.
Okay.
Going forward here, all right? So
let's
maybe
try it out.
A slow negative start. But
All
anyways,
right.
the Pistons, now they looked great. Drummond looked great, especially. I think he's an all-star. As of right now, he would be. Now, the rest of the team and moving forward, what do you expect out of the Pistons, Blair?
Well, one of the things that was a theme early in the season and just kind of throughout the first few games was figuring out the lineup and what rotation you have. There wasn't a solid lineup at all, and I think we're starting to see that carved out a bit better. Today, I heard Coach at the morning shoot-around, and he was talking about Andre working with Stanley versus some of the other people out on the court. He said Andre works well with everyone on the court, and I think that's going to be really just figuring out who the solid go-to unit is. One thing I will say about that to me is going to be interesting to see what the final story is at the end of the season is Boban. The fans love him, and they will get to a point where they start chanting towards the end of the game. Coach, I mean, he's nice because it's almost like he has no choice but to put him in when the fans get going. So I think lineup is a big thing, really figuring that out. It's gotten better, but just still some inconsistencies there.
And I think inconsistencies big time with Reggie Jackson. I haven't always liked what I've seen out of him so far, Blair. How would you evaluate his play up to this point in the season?
I mean, I think that's going to be the theme for everyone, the word inconsistent. I can't quite put my thumb on exactly what it's going to take, but when you have something such as shooting free throws, an issue this late in the season, Coach again was quoted earlier in the week. I kind of took it out of my post, but someone asked him, and his response was, how do you correct free throws? You make the shot. And I think that's fair to say as a coach, this late in the season, there's no more kind of fixture form. Let's do it this way. Let's do 100 free throws. There's so many other things that you have to focus on in the game per team. Something as fundamental as a free throw, you just got to make it.
And remember how the Pistons started off. Stan Van Gundy, in response to their fast start, said, don't get too high. Don't get your hopes up. Talking to his team because of all the media attention the Pistons started to garner. Now they're falling, not off the face of the earth, but they're kind of falling fast here. Losers of 6 in a row now, play the Nuggets Tuesday night as the night of this recording, as you know, Blair. And he has said that they're not as bad as this either. They're somewhere in the middle, which I think is very realistic. Something to understand as a Pistons fan and as pundits at large talking about the Pistons here, Doc.
Exactly. When you watch the Pistons, the good thing that you're seeing is I think they're at this point in time, they've defeated 7 teams out of 8 that have had losing records. So they're beating teams they're supposed to. And some of the losses have come to some solid teams. the Celtics, the Golden State Warriors. But one of the things that you look at with the Pistons and something that, as a fan, you definitely want to watch this team because it's a better team than in years past. Are they going to win every contest? No. Some of the things that they're doing a lot better, the addition of Avery Bradley, you definitely identify as a glue guy. This is a guy that when you identify a guy that you can gravitate towards that plays solid defense, a good leader, that's a character guy. That's a guy that can be looked at as the identity of the Pistons. It gives them an additional swagger that you like. Now, I know people get ahead of themselves. When they started off, I think 14-6, people were kind of looking at them maybe as a top 4 team. Maybe that's a little bit high on the high side. When I look at the Pistons, for me, I see a team that should make the playoffs. That should be the expectations, but I think based on their play, they're probably going to end up shaking out between maybe a 5 and a 7 seed. That's realistic. But if they perform, if they continue to shoot, and they continue to play defense and bring it night in, night out, they're going to defeat a lot of teams. I feel like they're going to win around 45 to 50 games. When I previewed the Pistons, I had them winning around 42, 43. So it wouldn't be that much more than I thought. The concern that you have is, like in any team, sometimes when the shooting gets cold, and that's what I talk about when I, talk basketball with people, is, for me personally, I don't like the new NBA in terms of being a jump shooting league. I like it to basically, I want the offense to go through Andre exclusively. I want him to dominate and get those 27 points and 20 rebounds every game. Can he do that night in, night out? Stronger defenders across the league can sometimes limit him in terms of his offense. So I want to push the offense through Andre and make the easy buckets, but this is a 3-point shooting league. You got Tobias, you got Avery, you got Reggie Jackson, you got players that can shoot the 3 so you can stay in a lot of games, but when it gets cold, like they were versus the Celtics, then you can get blown out pretty quick in this league, pretty quick. And if you don't do the little things, like Blair said, if you don't make free throws, you don't play solid defense and rebound, other people have to step it up. So I've enjoyed watching the Pistons night in, night out, and I've enjoyed kind of seeing where they're at. But if your expectation is them to be a top 4 seed, you're going to be a little bit disappointed, I think. I don't think that, they're going to be, they just need a couple more pieces of talent in order to get to that level.
And Vito, I'll say I've definitely enjoyed watching the team this season as well. But there's an element, and I don't know if it'll come from inside, because I think there's an element that people don't talk about. And when you go home, you want it to feel like home, right? We need the fans. They need the fans to come out. I think that really would give them an extra...
that boost, right?
Mm-hmm.
The extra edge. I think it would really get them
sorry.
that.
I'm like,
no, she's reacting because, Vito, why are you shaking your head? Why are you shaking your head? You don't think they're coming back?
Well, no, I was going to talk about the fans. I don't see them really coming back.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be hard.
Okay, because I was looking
Pistons,
at you shouldn't talk about that either. And I was like,
I want to talk about that. Definitely the fans and them showing up to the LCA, the new, brand new Little Caesars Arena, state-of-the-art, right? You've been there. I haven't been there. So I don't even know if it's state-of-the-art. Would love to be there. We will be there, actually, today. It is.
Nice.
Yes. For the doubleheader, Detroit Mercy, Michigan, OU against Michigan State.
I can't
Should be fun to cover for Doc, and I will be there for that. But getting fans to show up on a regular basis right now is not happening. And by the way,
But quickly, Vito, her point was we need the fans to come out. And you're shaking your head over there. So pay attention because she's absolutely right.
That would be an extra edge. Yeah.
Andre has pointed out before at Media Day that it kind of feels like a hockey arena. Now
it is.
Exactly.
Right?
So the Pistons, though, they don't want a big crowd when just the Cavaliers show up. They want a crowd night in, night out. And so the early narrative really hasn't been about the talent. Many people are assuming, and they're going with the notion that the hardcore fans are going to follow the Pistons, like you, like Blair, like basketball fans. But does the Pistons do the Pistons appeal to a larger audience right now? Really, the answer is no, because the big thing people want is when you see a team like Golden State, you see Kevin Durant, and that's a superstar. That guy can do anything on the court. They need just basically a little bit more star appeal, and I think they have it. It's just maybe not marketed exactly right. If I was the Pistons, I'm moving away a little bit from marketing Andre and Reggie, and I'm marketing hardcore exclusively Avery and Tobias Harris. Those guys are the cornerstones of that team. They're the most talented individuals on that team, and I feel like if they went that direction, people would gravitate a little bit more. But right now, a lot of fans, honestly, are in the position of, if this team's not in contention to win it all, then I'm going to pass on going because it is quite expensive. I seen some of the face value tickets. A family of 4 is not getting out of there without paying $300 minimum. You're not a family of 4. you can't get out of there without paying between $200 and $300 with parking, food, entertainment. It's going to cost between $200 and $300. So in terms of, I understand your point, Vito, that I don't see that happening yet until there's a winning product. But of course, we need the fans. They
need the fans, definitely.
You definitely need the fans. Blair's absolutely right.
Yeah, I think that energy helps out a lot. I mean, there's definitely that other side of the story, the cost of getting down there. But I do think that that's an important element to any team. And the stamina and just the energy going out there every night, the fans do help.
How many teams truly have superstars in the league? The Golden State Warriors do, the Cavaliers do, the Celtics do. Not many really have that true superstar, and the Pistons are lacking that. But to find one and to get one now, it's easier said than done. Doc?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. It is hard to find one, but that's why some of the fans that look at it are not on board with the Pistons playing at this level. They want them to kind of tank and get that higher draft pick. So a lot of fans are on Team Tank. They say, look, being mediocre, being a 5 to 8 seed every year and getting bounced in the first or second round is not the trajectory you want to plateau at. You want to shoot for the stars and maybe get a top 5 pick. And they've seen what the Sixers have done. They've seen what other teams have done. And they look at Golden State where they were irrelevant 10 years ago. Now they got 3-4 superstars every night that can basically carry the team. So that's where a lot of the fans are at. But I've gone down to Little Caesars. It's fun. It's very enjoyable. I would recommend it, but on a budget, it's really tough. But I was curious in terms of what Blair does there. When you go, take us through a typical night covering the Pistons because, Vito and I, we're on the come up. We're right there behind you.
We're on the cusp.
We're on the cusp.
I'm reaching your level.
So why not, in the efforts of learning, we humble ourselves and say, look, an individual that goes there regularly at any time she would like, we have to learn from her. So I understand that you go pregame, you take some photos, you kind of put us in the scene, but take us through like a night like a Tuesday night when you go cover the Pistons and the Nuggets. What does that kind of look like for you?
Well, it's really interesting, and I don't think it's any easier for me just because, like I'm an outside media source, and I look at it, for example, today they had morning practice. It's at 10 a.m. Game time is at 7 p.m. If you want to go and get morning practice, guess where you go?
Out to Auburn Hills.
You go out to Auburn Hills, and we just had our first snow. So you go out to Auburn Hills, you do the practice, and then you have to report to the arena. I like to get to the arena around 4:30 because Coach goes on for his pregame availability around 5:15 p.m. So 5:15, we're getting Coach. 5:30, you can head over if you want to get some visiting coach action. Right after that, you've got shoot around going on. So it really depends on what you need. But if you're covering the full event, you're pretty busy from the time you step through the door until the end of the night. They actually do have media meals, which that's great. And they've got a nice selection. So I don't know if that'll help you guys when you come. You don't have to worry about eating. They do take care of that. So that's really good. And you've got halftime. Halftime is a good time to kind of catch up on your notes and things like that. After the game, there is Coach's press conference, which he usually comes out within about 10 or 15 minutes of the game. After the coach, you go immediately to locker room for player availability. And that's where things can get a little tricky because some guys they'll stay after for media availability. But if you don't request them, then they're at freedom, of course, to go home. And then you have to wait on them to get showered and things. But it's a really, really full night. And I was talking about the Pistons staff because they actually have to commute from Auburn Hills to Little Caesars Arena as well on game days because the practice facility for the Pistons will not be in Detroit until next season. So, like I said, pretty full day, but everybody's very hospitable. I like the energy around the place. I like the arena. I like the media. There's an area called a media gondola. And I was telling my parents they hadn't been to the arena, and a lot of people who don't go. One of the biggest reasons you want to sit courtside is because it's like, I want my feet to touch the wood. I want my pictures on social media to look good. But the way the arena is set up, I've had the chance to be obviously courtside, but the media gondola, which is almost at the top of the arena, has a great view of the game. If you're covering and you're writing, you can see the court like you're watching television. They don't look like little ants. So I think the construction of the arena is really nice, and it does. They've described it as if you're hanging over the court and it's supposed to be more intimidating for the visiting teams that come in. So to me, it's well built. It's really excellent. I love good seats even as a spectator, but if you've got to sit a little higher up in the arena, it's still really nice.
So when I get my first opportunity, I'm going to be like, Blair told me I need a seat courtside. What's all this media gondola stuff? I want to sit courtside. Blair said, I need the Blair treatment is what I got to go do the first time.
Blair Glover.
I want to sit courtside. You know, I don't care about the Athletic, the News, the Free Press, the Pistons.com guy. Those four guys, they don't need to sit where I need to sit. So please just pick one of those guys,
them out of the
move them out of the way, and put the DOC there, and we'll be good.
Hey, Doc, I have no problems with that. I would just update the plan a little. Don't put my name in it.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, Doc will put his feet up and enjoy his courtside seat, definitely, if he gets the chance to do so.
Yeah.
I would just like to get to Little Caesars Arena. We will be there covering once again Detroit
I look
University,
forward
Michigan,
to
and
it.
the doubleheader, but that'll be fun. Now, the next event for us is to cover a Pistons game, perhaps, in the near future.
That's a trajectory we're on, baby.
Right? We're nearing that, we think.
We're taking baby steps along the way, having the communication. Blair got to see me in action, trying to fight for the network, trying to get my spot, my foot in the door, and she's like, okay, John's got some, guts. He's not going to back away from anybody. He's not going to take no for an answer. And she's seen me work in action, and we had a good time working with the Horizon League and covering college basketball. But the thing that's interesting when you cover a college team versus a pro team is the pro team is very organized and very protective. My first time at Pistons practice, I had kind of the mindset of like covering college where you can just stand anywhere, go anywhere. And one of the first things they do is they show you to the media room. And I got there super early because I'm excited. I'm like, oh my God, my first time at Pistons practice. So the first thing they do is I'm like, okay, there's the court. I'm walking towards you. They're like, sir, go in that room. I'm like, okay. So I walked in the media room. I'm the first one there. Practice is at noon. I showed up like 11:20. There's nobody there. So I see kind of how it's set up there in that media room. And I'm like, okay, I figured I'm just going to start typing. So I started a little article and then included the audio from Coach Dan Van Gundy. So it's kind of regimented in that you just can't walk around and do whatever. They have practice going on at the same time, but the media portion is different in that there's a certain point they don't show you a lot. They're just kind of shooting around, kind of shooting free throws. So it's sectioned off. And the thing that I learned so far now in the last 3 months is my naivete kind of went away in that they're not trying to give you as much information as I would like. They're not just going to be like, yeah, sure, Stanley Johnson wants to talk to you. If he doesn't want to talk to you, he doesn't have to. If if you try and ask for an interview and they're not ready, they'll just be like, you're just a podcast. Just kind of talk to the coach and keep it moving.
And get the hell out of here.
Yeah, because
really.
you know what I did? I had no problem. I went over to one of the directors and said, look, I'd love to talk to Coach Van Gundy on the podcast. He looked at me like I was crazy.
What's a podcast?
Yeah, exactly.
Come again?
Exactly. He looked at me like, but you know what? I'm not afraid to ask. Because
you have to ask.
You have to get your foot in the door and tell them what you want. And a lot of times it's going to be a ridiculous request based on where we're at. But I learned that the college game is amazing to cover. If you're listening and you want to get your feet wet, start with college because you get a lot more access. They tell you a lot more. You can walk around freely. It's not so secretive. They let you do a little bit more than in the pro game. The pro game, it's like, look, we got to filter certain information to Pistons.com. We got to filter certain information to these people. And then the podcast, in terms of where I'm at, is the last line of getting information. So I'm working on it. I understand it, but you first have to be aware of it. And when you're aware of it, it's a lot better because okay, I get where I'm at in the pecking order. And when there's individuals that are going like Blair, you learn, okay, you want to get stories, you want to cover film, you want to get the certain comments, you want to be able to get information that we can relay to our followers. And that's why people like Neil Rule, people like Blair are so great because they don't mind. They share information. And that's a good thing that I learned is that nothing has to be secret. We can tell everybody what's going on. And, when we cover the games, part of the reason why our coverage will be good is because of the influences of people like Blair and Neil. So it's fun. It's a fun thing to do. And Blair does a great job. You got to check it out.
Thank you.
Follow her on Twitter at Blair On Air. #1.
And I just want to say really quickly, since you came from the perspective of anyone listening and trying to get into the industry, great pointer to tell them to start off at college because you get your feet wet. You really learn the pace of sports. I mean, when you're home tweeting or when you're home in your office doing your podcast, you move at your own pace, right? But when you get to that arena, stuff is like going a million miles a minute. And like you said, they'll push you out the way, move here, move there. Definitely start early because it'll give you a better platform when you're ready to go to the professional level. It'll just give you a little bit more notoriety and experience there.
And something I wanted to ask about your videos, what's your mindset? How do you prepare for those, and what information are you trying to relay? And, all kidding aside with all the takes, but your videos are really good. I do get a lot of information from it, stuff that I have actually used and said on the podcast because you are there. So I give you a lot of credit. But for me, as people know, I'm more of a behind the scenes, sit behind the mic kind of guy. But for those like yourself who are setting up a camera stand and doing videos there at Little Caesars Arena, what are you trying to convey and what are you trying to do?
I think it depends on the game and where we are in the season. A lot of times this year, my approach has been social media coverage where I'm not as much in front of the camera. I'm more so tweeting, trying to get you some immediate information. I'm trying to get you a behind the scenes look. As a fan, you can't go show up to practice. So when I'm there, I'm thinking, if I were the fan, what I want to see? So I may get a little footage of Stanley shooting around, which, there are rules to what you can post and what you can put out there. But whenever I can, I try to think from a fan perspective, what would I want to see if I did not have this access? And then when I get in front of the camera, I'm usually trying to make sure that I'm useful and I'll get in front of the camera usually when I'm trying to do some sort of a recap. If we've got about 5 games in, or if we have a big team coming in, then I may get in front of the camera. So you more so have a face-to-face with me and tonight's game is big, or here's where we are our mid-season. So I really do try to take on the perspective of a fan. And then always in the back of my mind is the organization, the Pistons organization, making sure that even though I'm an outside entity, that I'm not portraying anything that they would not approve of.
Really quick, the 2 Bad Hombres on this podcast are the last 2 men on the totem pole when it comes to getting access and info from the Pistons and these pro teams. But you know what? For these pro teams to disseminate info willingly to podcasters, it's hard enough for them to disseminate it to local newspaper outlets, right? And for you, Blair, from your vantage point, you've seen that. The inner workings of PR for these pro teams like the Pistons, they don't want every single thing getting out to the media, obviously. Well, for obvious reasons, too.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's the big 1 or 2 rules that you can't do? Like, what are the things that like, look, John, don't do that? Like video of some things, or what are some things that are the big no-nos?
I think some of the big no-nos would be in-game action. It's okay to take photos as an outside source, but you can't say like you want to live stream the whole game. That's a big no-no. You can't live stream because there are major networks paying lots of dollars.
And the NBA has the rights to those highlights too, and Fox Sports Detroit.
Yes, so places like that. So you cannot stream. There's a very specific time frame that they give you. So you get the rules, and they are available on the internet for media and professionals, but that's one of the biggest things. And what's interesting is sometimes it may be hard to remember those types of things because we live in such a social media world, such an immediate world. And guess what? Live streaming is cool. Our fans want to see it, but you really have to be careful with
you
that.
can take clips, but then just don't air until after the game. Is basically the way you want to do it, or maybe several hours after the game, you can post your photos to your articles and things like that. There's nothing done basically during the game. A lot of it's just tweets and stats, and then after the game is when the multimedia stuff can happen to respect the rights of those that are paying for it live. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Now, in terms of also asking questions, is there like a protocol where Fox Sports Detroit is going to ask the first 2 or 3 questions that is being broadcast? Because you can tell right away when they go to the Fox Sports Detroit airing, the first couple questions are those from the staff there.
Well, I think that the staff, it's just a relationship thing. Like if I came to a show that you and Vito had, you'd probably acknowledge me first. It's not that it's protocol. Okay. In fact, if you take a platform like pregame with the coach, it's open. And so what they'll usually do is coach will talk with Fox Sports first, and no one's allowed to ask questions. And then he has a separate setup immediately after where podcasts, the newspapers, everyone else can ask. And you know what? He's kind of used to some of the same questions being asked. Yeah. So, you have to get your soundbite. I think he understands that. The PR staff understands that. So, in that respect, I don't think there's a rule for...
Can I make one request of you?
Okay.
Watching... A little bit less Rod Beard, more Blair Glover. Just push in there, get in there, and I want to hear your voice on Fox Sports Detroit because I know who's asking these questions, and a lot of times it's Johnny Kane and Rod Beard, and I'm like, okay, Vince, work your way in there. It's okay, I know who you are. Get your questions in there, but I want the rotation to go Johnny Kane, Blair Glover. Can we work on that in the second half of the year?
We can definitely work
Okay.
on that in the second half of the year. And I'm going to tell you, it really isn't. It's more so you have to be the aggressor.
Yes.
So you've challenged me to be the aggressor.
I want to hear
will.
some of those good questions because Johnny
I
Kane
will.
got the first one off with the free throw question. And at Detroit Podcast, we aired it uncensored because we roll like that. I know. I was looking at Blair's video and I'm like, oh, she edited it there. But it's good stuff. No, you do great work.
Edit.
Yeah, get in there. That's right. Get in there, ask the questions. You do good work. I know you have good questions that you would ask. So get in there, get in the mix, get on TV. You know, get your camera set up in there too.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You're right about it. All right. Challenge accepted. All of the Detroit Sports Podcast fans, you guys heard it. And thank you.
No problem.
So, Blair, who's the best Pistons interview? Not named Stan Van Gundy. So, of the players.
You know what? I think it's going to depend on the night. If you're winning versus if you're coming off a challenging night. For me, during a winning night, Andre, not that he's bad during a loss, because Andre's pretty open, win or lose. Some guys aren't, so I respect and appreciate that. So on a winning night, he's pretty entertaining. I like him.
Okay, very good. Now, when we record the podcast, we have a lot of fans that enjoy calling in and they want to know what's going on. One of the big super fans is Steve, and I know he's listening, and he wanted to have a chance just to catch up with Blair. He's always wondering what she's up to. We brought Blair in, and joining us now on Two Bad Hombres, Steve Chimenti. What's going on, Steve?
What's going on, fellas?
Always
Hi, Blair.
Hi, Steve. Happy holidays.
Hey, Steve,
Same
Vito's
to
here
you,
too.
hon.
Happy holidays.
Oh, hey, same to you, Vito. Hey, Vito, how you feeling? I heard you went hard the other day.
Well,
You had a little hangover?
I never said that. No, not even close to that, Steve. You know, I'm a professional all the time, no matter where I'm at. And no, I could never afford to have a hangover. Okay. But no, that was Doc probably spreading some fake news. Okay. But anyways, Steve, glad to have you on. We have Blair, we have the Doc. And what would you like to chat with us about?
Oh, wow. Any of you seen the Star Wars movie yet? Probably not, no.
No, but I brought my sister a holiday calendar that was all Star Wars, and she's pretty psyched about that.
Blair, what's going on with the Pistons? No fans are showing up.
I think you should come out. I just kind of talked about that a little earlier, and a lot of people are saying it's a bit expensive, but I have seen tickets for between $48 and $55, which by my opinion is pretty similar to the Palace. So I would encourage people to come out and see the place and give the Pistons some support.
Well, the food prices are expensive too.
Yeah, you may have to eat, or guess what? I don't know if this was planned out too, but Little Caesars, it is Little Caesars Arena. If you don't like Little Caesars, then I get it. But if you can stand it, their prices are pretty reasonable. It's I think what's expected. For example, a slice of pizza at Little Caesars is $4. It says that it was the big slice. I didn't purchase it, but it does advertise that it's the big slice for $4. I think that's reasonable for stadium food. That's not bad. If you want to get fancy, because you can at Little Caesars Arena, then I think you start getting into some trouble.
Now, have you been a fan, Steve, of Blair's work this year covering the Pistons at the Detroit Sports Media?
Yes, I have. I've been following her on Twitter and reading stuff she has, and she's been great. She's done great. I've told you guys got to have her on 24/7.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Steve. I always appreciate you.
If we were to utilize Blair, what should we do? What kind of content should we have Blair do for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network? What do you think?
Give her all sorts of topics: sports, entertainment, what's around going on in the city.
Hey, Steve, would you keep the Doc? I don't know if I would keep him. On staff, honestly.
Yeah.
At least on air. He can be behind the scenes like he does best, I think, as a producer. He loves doing that. He doesn't like seeing his bald head, anyways, on videos.
No, that's a fair question. If you got the rankings of these four people, in what order would you say in terms of the people that you respect and want on the network? Blair, Vito, John, Adam, and Jason. Which order would you kind of go in top 3 or 4?
So I put Blair at number 1.
Okay.
Let's see. Number 2 would probably be Adam.
Okay, that makes sense.
3 would be Doc.
Yeah, all right, I'm in the mix. Thank you. That really actually does make me feel good because I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Would you put Vito at 4 or 5?
Actually, I put him at 4.
That's pretty fair.
would. Thanks. Okay, well, hey, remember how I followed you, Steve, originally? That's not going to be the case anymore. So thank you very much, buddy.
Oh,
It's okay.
No, we're joking. All joking aside, it was a fair thing for you to do to rank it the way you did. I mean, I might not sleep at night now for a few nights in a row, but it'll be all right eventually, Steve.
Okay, now, Steve, before we let you go, what do you think about the Pistons? I mean, they were mitered in a losing streak. They played solidly against some top opponents, but against some of these top echelon teams, they've had some struggles as of late. What are your thoughts about the Pistons?
well, they're a good team. They're not a great team. They still need a lot of help on the bench. I think they need to go out and make a trade or something. I mean, Stan is just he's got a nice bench, but I think he needs to get a couple of good backup roles, maybe at the 4, maybe at the 5.
Okay.
Get some help with Drummond.
Yeah, makes sense. Where do you see them making the playoffs?
Right now, no.
Okay.
Oh, come on, Steve. They got to make the playoffs, man. Come on.
Not the way they're playing. Not the way they're playing. No.
I understand. Now, you got one last message you can share with Blair. You have the opportunity. What would you like to say to her in terms of maybe showing support or anything like that? Go ahead before we let you go.
Okay, Blair, I wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well.
And hopefully you'll get a show, unless, Vito and Doc probably won't let that happen. But you never know. But Vito, you be nice to her.
I will. I always am. She knows it, and she would admit it, right?
Yes, I will. I will. And you know what, Steve? Don't stop standing up for me. I appreciate it. But these guys treat me well. They really do.
Thank you, Blair.
And Steve, we can't discount your support, man. I really do enjoy firing up the Twitter to see what you got going on. So thank you for your support. We all like it. Keep it going. 2017 was awesome because of people like you. We want to keep it going in 2018. With your support, we can do all the things we're trying to do here at the network. So I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate you dialing up and talking to Blair, but we're going to let you go, okay? Merry Christmas to you as well.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Steve.
Same to you guys.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So that's what makes it fun, is that's how you do it. A fan that likes the show, really infatuated with Blair. It's really awesome because, over the course of the podcast, we've had a lot of fans that have been like that. And Steve is a great dude and always brings it fun and sometimes, makes it entertaining to read what he's telling us in terms of some critiques, but mostly positive. So I'm really happy. And the best part is he ranked me above you.
I love it.
So,
Well, he's called me a diva. He's called me a diva. Now, that might be because of you pushing now this motto or this slogan for me, #media prince. You're causing me to have a bad name now, okay? In the media industry, and I'm not going to get a job now somewhere.
Oh, no.
But anyway, so Steve had said he doesn't believe the Pistons are going to make the playoffs. They're currently 7th in the East. They're tied with the Washington Wizards. The Wizards actually have the same record, but hold the tiebreaker because they've beaten the Pistons already twice this season. Now, it's still relatively early in the NBA campaign, but I think all of us here right now see the Pistons making the postseason. Now, they're lacking that true superstar. Now, they have an all-star, in my opinion, in Andre Drummond to build around, who can be an all-star, maybe not year in, year out, but every other year he is that guy that is a borderline all-star at least. But they could use a young superstar. And Josh Jackson is one of those guys that I wanted to bring up because you've covered him very closely in the past, Blair.
Yes.
And you've even been to a Phoenix Suns game. Now, how many games have you been to actually of his this season so far?
Actually, I've only been to the Detroit Pistons game when he came the other day, and I got a chance to see him during Summer League. So when you talk about, I wanted to talk about this earlier. We were talking about the Pistons needing a young superstar. Fans are thinking, let's tank this season. Let's try to go high in the draft next season. And if we think back to the last time I was on this show, and probably every time that I've come, I said the class of 2017, the NBA draft class, is going to be the change of the face of the league. And I stick by that. Josh Jackson and every class member with him. But 2018 is no slight either. There's some great talent coming through the 2018 class. And what you're going to see is these guys were used to playing with each other from high school, college, and to see them in the league playing, it's going to be something really special. So I saw Josh play. I actually had a chance to speak to him before the game at the Little Caesars Arena, and I thought it was really interesting. I told him, good job this year. I'm proud of him. And I asked him how he felt. And he said, you know what? I was really looking forward to playing at the Palace. And I thought about that. That's really interesting. As a kid growing up in Detroit, you have dreams of playing basketball. You've got the Bad Boys days where else would you want to play besides the Palace? So he just missed it by a year. And I hadn't even thought about that. But I said, that's okay. You've got a chance to make some history on your own in Little Caesars.
Well, he could have played at the Palace as a member of Doc's MSU Spartans against OU. And he didn't choose to go to Michigan State. I thought he was going to go to MSU to play for Sparty.
Yeah.
For Doc's team. I thought it was going to happen. I think a lot of people did. And I think I read recently that Josh had dreamed of playing at MSU at one point. So what the heck happened from your knowledge of that situation, Blair?
Well, I don't know if I can say what happened from my knowledge. I can say what happened from the program where he was. I think it was a good fit educationally for him. Not that Michigan State wasn't, but he was able to create a long-term plan with them that fit him. And that's just like anyone else. When you're looking at a college, obviously you look at the sporting program and you like it. But if you're educating your children right, then you also look at what benefits they have from an educational standpoint. Because if you ever have to go back and just thinking of a career outside of basketball. So I think that was a big factor in his decision. And I also think that during his high school years, I'm not sure how many times I saw Coach Izzo in the crowd at some of those events, but I did see there's an assistant coach at Kansas, Townsend. So I saw him early on. And so when you even show that type of interest, that it's consistent, relationships matter. So I think when you look at, and this is me from the outside, this is not an inside perspective, this is an outside opinion. I think that when you look at those standards, then I think he made a good choice.
Now, Blair, can't you tell that Doc is an MSU Sparty fan? Look at what he has on right now.
Yeah, he's got an MSU scarf
Look at that. He's down in the scarf.
Thing,
Just got it, and you can talk about it, Doc.
Yeah, before we get to our final topic, I know we're going to shift gears here and talk about something a little bit serious before Blair has to leave. Yes, it's going to be very challenging this Saturday, today, when this podcast airs, for me to be objective because I'm a Spartan grad. I love Michigan State. And so I was telling Jason in a previous podcast recording, I'm going to shift gears to be more objective starting Wednesday, Thursday of this week, and I got to shift into kind of gaining information and things like that. I will not be cheering for Michigan State, but I am a passionate alum, and it's actually perfect because I cover Oakland, and Michigan State's going to play in that game Saturday. I just love the fact that I'm going to be doing this with Vito. We're going to cover it. We're going to try and be at the level of Blair and put out videos, content, and try to compete a little bit with the Detroit sports media.
We want to beat Blair.
Listen,
we're going to conquer Blair. Okay?
Blair is the bar in the Detroit sports media.
Oh my God.
We're going to top it.
Oh my God.
I like it.
Oh my gosh.
I like it.
So I'm sitting here doing the head shake
You're
like
just sitting
Vito
there.
did
I
to
know.
me earlier. I'm shaking like, no, don't say that. Don't say that.
That comes with love and respect.
Yes,
We greatly appreciate
yes.
the work
Thank you
you do.
guys.
And so
Thank
we're just
you.
trying not to mess it up because we're just a podcast, but we're trying to do and really fulfill the goals of the network. And
No,
it's-
you guys.
And I know Blair knows. She's like, oh, I see that guy doing his thing.
Yeah,
I'm a
you guys
podcaster.
are great.
We're
We're
having fun.
trying, okay? We're trying our best out there.
Detroit
It's hard.
Sports Podcast Network. You guys are here with them faithfully. So I know they do great work.
Yes.
But they're talking me up, and I want to talk them up. I see them out all the time working. They're writing. They're covering the events as well, sometimes from a different angle or a different perspective. But you guys are putting the work in too, and don't even dare. Don't do it. But I'm going to tell you, I will see you guys on Saturday. So
Nice.
this
Very
will
nice.
be-
We look forward to
This
it.
will be really fun.
Very
and
good.
I have to agree with you, Doc. I was thinking I want to wear some maize and blue.
Embrace it fully.
Oh, gosh.
Because-
And be very subjective.
Okay,
huh?
whoever's listening to this, put Blair on the other side. Put Blair on the other side of Doc.
You don't tell the audience my microphone cover is maize.
Yes.
See
You're
that?
loving that.
I'm loving
Yes.
it. So
Yeah.
if this is any indication to
That's
Saturday,
good.
but it's going to be a challenge because just like you graduated from MSU and you cover Oakland, I graduated from Michigan and I cover Mercy. So
Oh, wow.
I really
Very
am
good.
in your same seat, Doc. So
you
we'll
can,
sit
you can
there
feel
and
for him a little bit.
yeah, I can feel for you.
Exactly.
He'll be all right. I went to Detroit Mercy, so we have a lot of alums going to be at Little Caesars Arena. Now, we could have had, I'm sorry to bring it up again, but Josh Jackson playing this Saturday. We could have seen him, Cassius, Miles Bridges.
Vito.
And now really quick.
He's in the
really
NBA
quick,
cashing
I want-
checks. You don't care
he's
about
making
that.
money, big money, and more power to him. Much respect to him. And really quick, now, he grew up with Miles and Cassius. They were childhood friends, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they actually played. A lot of them played AAU basketball, so they're no stranger to each other. But I'll tell you, they're friends, but on the court, very competitive. I've had the chance to see actually last year during Miles' freshman year, he and Josh got a chance to play against each other, and they didn't slack at all. It
Fierce
was
enemies on the floor, as it should be.
Very entertaining. So this 2018, I don't know what Miles' decision will be this year. A lot of people thought he may have come out last year. Personally, I'd be excited if he does choose this year and respect whatever. But that rivalry on the court is great to see. Josh Jackson versus a Miles Bridges. And it's going to depend on what position they put him at once he comes into the league. But it's definitely something to see.
Okay, final topic. We got a few minutes left with Blair Glover. Always enjoy the conversation. Always seems like when she's here, the time flies by.
I know.
And it's always
I'm
true,
like,
right?
Wait, I'm still going.
We'll have you in a lot more. I mean, I can't be stingy. I'll have Vito extend the olive branch a lot more in 2018. Obviously, it's a tough time now talking about kind of men in power, talking and looking at the landscape and seeing what's been going on socially in terms of all these sexual harassment claims going on, looking at men in power and how they treat women, looking at, the role of women covering sports and how they are treated, the really tough challenge that I've heard that it is being a woman covering sports. What have you made of all this news recently regarding, so it's almost every day now, the big story that came out earlier in the week was several members of the NFL network have been accused, including Marshall Faulk, a person that I respect in terms of the coverage that he provided talking football. But almost every single day, you hear about a new accusation of, men in power, sexually harassing women. What have you taken away from this, and how have you experienced it?
I will say it's very interesting for me to talk about controversial subjects because that's one of the things with sports. I kind of walk the fine line, and that's by choice. But when you guys asked me how did I feel about discussing this, I said, you know what? I'm going to do it because it's probably going to be controversial, my response. And here it is. When it comes to harassment in the workplace, no one should have to experience that, whether it's a woman or a man. So I actually take a general approach. I don't think I'm taking a super feminist approach to it because women have done it too to men, and they don't deserve it if that makes them uncomfortable. The issue that I have is when you bring something like this to light, if it's not true, shame on you, because there are people who experience harassment and you devalue their case when you put false allegations out there and you're just trying to gain from it, whether that's popularity or whether you're trying to gain financially. I don't respect that. As a woman working in sports, I can say that, I've been blessed and I haven't really. The other challenge for me is I'm a woman and I'm a minority in another way, so it's hard for me sometimes to separate and decide what pocket to put things in. So I've built some tough skin, and I'm not saying to sweep things under the rug. I'm simply saying, for example, in the NFL case, one of the claims made is that an individual was using the restroom and the woman walked kind of, from my understanding, and Doc, you're familiar, so correct me. The woman walked in as he was using the restroom, and he kind of made a comment like, hey, don't blame me for your office being in the crapper, basically, Doc. That sounds about right. I'm just going to say that if someone said that to me, I wouldn't take it as harassment. I would not have taken that particular. Now, I'm not saying all the claims made in this particular case are something to take lightly, but to me, that's not harassment. I would talk to my friends like that. And the thing is, I wasn't there. I don't know if he was trying to be disrespectful. Now, if he exposed himself purposely to her, then that's a huge issue. But she, in fact, walked in on him. And that's something that neither of them planned, I think.
That can happen.
So,
You're right. And I think you brought up a very good point. It can happen to both men and women.
Yeah, it can happen. So in that situation, I think things like that specific one, because I'm not trying to take away all of her claims, but that specific situation would not have offended me.
Blair, look, even as we're recording, literally as you were speaking, a report just came out that someone's accusing Larry King of, groping someone. Literally, just as you were talking, it just came across the wire on E! News that Larry King has been accused, and he flatly denies it. So it's a situation where when you talk about it, it just goes to show you that, in essence, the keep it simple approach is really simple. At the workplace, you treat people with respect. Sexual innuendos, those type of things have to be barred from the workplace. And I truly believe, too, we have to put it out there. Men and women can get along in the workplace. These are isolated incidences, okay? Even if we get now to 100, reports at this point in time, you got to remember, by and large, we can highlight those companies like Detroit Sports Podcast, other entities that don't treat women like that, okay?
Definitely.
So what you do is you highlight those that are doing well, and you say to yourself, too, by and large, men in power can treat women appropriately. Yes, in this country, the great country of the United States, are there people that do bad things? Yes. Is it the majority? I refuse to believe that. You will hear these things. You will hear people doing racist things. You will hear people doing criminal things. But by and large, the thing that I always want to emphasize when we have these discussions is it's important to discuss it and to discuss the dynamics and experiences and things like that. But always to add the caveat, by and large, men in power can treat women with respect. We can, by and large, we can interact and help each other advance in our causes either way, by and large. But these isolated instances can make it seem like, well, every man in power does this. That's not true. That's not true at all. And we can highlight people like Vito, myself, and everybody at the network. We don't tolerate that. And we work hard to highlight and bring in our competition, Blair, the person who's actually going to the Pistons tonight, not me. We highlight people, we uplift them, and so that's what I always want to leave with. But it's in the keep it simple model, as a simpleton like me will say, treat women with respect, don't objectify them, highlight their talents, and bring them on for the purpose of what they're there to do, which is cover sports, to do the same thing that you're passionate about, and to leave the personal stuff behind closed doors when you leave the workplace. Punch out at 5:01 and act accordingly. But between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. or whatever your work hours, you got to be professional. And that's the thing that I think has kind of been blurred and lost in this culture is how to be professional. And that's something that can always be taught and looked at in advance. And that's always something a company should look at is how do we be more professional? The DSP, we look at how to be more unprofessional for our own entertainment. But at the same time, in all honesty, in all seriousness, it's nice to highlight those that are doing well. And I'm thankful to highlight Blair because she's been so nice and kind and gracious, and she takes our jokes, and she's very funny, and she's someone that's willing to share her knowledge with lowly podcasters. So I always have a good time.
Oh, my gosh.
It's very easy to highlight Blair.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. You know what? Next show, can we not throw me out there? I'm not used to this. I'm stuttering.
All the compliments?
Yeah, I'm not used to this. But I do want to say, I don't want people to misunderstand me. Yes. I take that subject matter very seriously. And I do. If you want the simpleton version is, if it's not true, you shouldn't claim it because it definitely devalues people who've had a negative experience. And I think it's great it's out there because we can have the discussion, one, and two, if there is a person who participates in these vile acts, then they'll think about it. So this is good. I think overall, it's great to have the discussion.
And you have to have the dialogue because you know what? Some of it is true. Most of it. It's not some of it. Most of it is true when the claims come out, and we have to respect those women and men that come out and say that something bad happened to them in this manner too.
So Blair, where can people find your great work?
You guys actually can find my work on DetroitSportsMedia.com, and you can follow me personally at BlairOnAir1 on Twitter. Thank you all so much again for having me out. Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You guys are great for listening whenever I come on the show and giving them great feedback. I'm happy that you all have this platform, and I can't wait to come back.
Blair, thank you so much for coming in, and to you, Doc, and to all of our listeners out there, including Steve Chimenti. He's a common fan of Blair and I guess of Doc now. He likes Doc more than I.
Number
so I guess
3,
I learned that
baby.
today. I'm number 4 on the totem pole, but I guess at least number 4 on the totem pole.
Yeah, Steve's great. He's been there since day one of me showing
supporting
up here.
us, and great to have his support, and everybody else is out there, and we will leave you with that. Adios for now.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.